Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome to this virtual information session for prospective graduate students who are interested in doing a PhD in Earth System Science at UC Irvine. So we're so glad to have people here from all over the world. My name is Kathleen Johnson. I'm a associate professor here in the department. My research area is in paleoclimate. And my co-host here is Professor Claudia Simchik. I'll let you introduce yourself, Claudia.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Claudia Simchik. I'm a professor in ESS here, and I work on permafrost and terrestrial carbon dynamics and impact of climate change on terrestrial systems.
Great. And also, I forgot to mention, I am also the vice chair for diversity, equity, and inclusion for our department. And Professor Simchik is the vice chair for graduate studies. So hopefully together we'll be able to provide you with an overview of what our department is like, what research areas we're working on in our department, what the graduate program is like, and provide some tips for admissions. And then we have some panelists of current graduate students who you can ask questions of them and of us for about the second half of today's program. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Does that look okay to everyone? Okay, great. So I think we've already covered this. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Professor Simchik.
Yeah, thank you all for coming today. We're glad you're interested in the department and in UCI. We're just going to give you a little rundown of what we do and who we are, and then open it up for questions. So Earth System Science without the S at the end, so just the one science, is a super interdisciplinary field that really focuses on the interactions of the different parts of the planet. So we have the atmosphere, the land, oceans, the cryosphere, and life, including the interactivities of people that interact as a system. And we use a broad range of tools, so anything from field work to modeling to data analysis to study how the world is responding, how the planet, the Earth system is responding to climate change, and how these different components feed back to climate change. So our research is really trying to understand the impacts of humans and climate change on the coupled systems, and also how we transition into a more sustainable future. So if you're not familiar with UC Irvine, we are located in sunny California. So we always pride ourselves on great weather. It is sunny here most of the year. It's a really nice place to live. I moved here from a much rainier place in Northern Europe a long time ago. We have easy access to beaches. We're a 10-minute drive from the beach, and we're very close to the deserts and the mountains. There's a lot of really fantastic national parks within driving distance from the university. While I talk a lot about driving, which is something we all do here in Southern California, you see Irvine, the city, prouds itself to also be fairly sustainable. So UC Irvine is a top green university of the US. And we're small, but mighty, with our anteaters as the mascot. And we pride ourselves to do really great research. We want to be part of the solution for climate change, understanding climate change. And the department is highly ranked in the US and also among global universities. And so we want to be at the forefront of research and solutions. We're located near, so if you're more into urban stuff, we're located in between basically Los Angeles and San Diego. So you also have access to really great global culture, concerts, music, and theaters. So it's an exciting place to live, but you get less of the bustle of actual Los Angeles in Irvine. Okay, so the department is really interdisciplinary. We, in a way, have one or two people for every part of the planet. And we break it down into about 4 major core areas in the department. We have people who work on the physical climate. That's really understanding the climate itself, both today and in the past, with paleoclimate observations and modeling. We have researchers working on oceanography and the cryosphere, so ice sheet dynamics and stability, and connected to the hydrologic cycle. So that is anything from water and permafrost to precipitation, events, distribution. And then the next group is the biogeochemistry, which is what I'm part in. Professor Johnson is part of the physical climate group. And we study both the terrestrial and the marine ecosystems and biogeochemistry. The third group that's very strong here in Irvine and also at the University of Irvine and in our department is atmospheric chemistry. So we have a number of faculty associated with air pollution research and biosphere-atmosphere interactions. As we're changing the composition of the atmosphere, has a lot of impacts on plants and the biosphere and the oceans and how they're interacting with the land. And then the newest but mighty group, and it's also very actively growing, is the human systems, where faculty and researchers and students study water, energy, and agriculture interactions, ecosystem services, and sustainability overall. And many of us don't quite fit into any of these four groups. So the faculty and also the students are often associated with more than one of these groups. So for example, I work at the interface of biogeochemistry and atmospheric chemistry. And Professor Johnson would be physical climate and biogeochemistry. So, and maybe even some atmospheric stuff. So there's a lot of interactions, and we really value the connections. As just like our faculty and students are working on diverse research themes and interactions, we also use a number of different tools to do this. So we have faculty and students engaged in field studies all over the globe. I work in the Arctic a lot. Other people work in the tropics. So we cover the entire planet. But we also use remote sensing that can be ground-based or airborne or shipborne. So we work on observations at very many different levels. It includes flux towers. So from small scale to large scale, and then we have a lot of interactions with other people that study that model these and plan it forward. So I personally really like being in this department because my work is more small scale, and I can easily work with other groups that can help me extrapolate my results to larger regional, continental, or global scales. And so our students have the opportunity to work across different temporal and spatial scales and using many of these different techniques. So it's common that students do some field work and combine it with modelings. And if you don't want to, you can also focus on just one of these things. But there's these opportunities for interaction, learning different tools and working on different scales. The latest one that we're very excited about is machine learning computer science, because in earth system science and in science in general, data is becoming more and more available. And it's a really important skill that our future students, future faculty, future environmental scientists have good data skills. That's an important part of our education here at UCI. Yeah, and we hope that you all consider joining our program. We have really very active and diverse group of about 60 grad students at the time. We have lots of interactions of the whole department, but also the grad student among each other. And so we empower our students to organize social events, but also skill building educational events, and also to engage in community outreach. So you can already start being part of the solution. Our grad students run a lot of our outreach programs to the local and regional school districts. We provide funds for grad students as a cohort across multiple years to go on retreats and talk about science, and also kind of build interactions among each other, which are future cohorts. And it's common for our students to end up on joint publications. So we really focus on the interactions between the science themes and between people here. And some benefits of our department, if you join as a student, is that we guarantee 5 years of funding, including summer. So we don't set you free in the summer. You're supposed to work on your grad research. Most of our students are funded through research grants, a smaller proportion, about 40%, through fellowships and TA positions. We require at least 2 quarters of teaching assistant work, because most jobs in higher education are in teaching, and teaching is a really important part of education that also consolidates your knowledge of the Earth system. And we have some other benefits. So we allow for a moving allowance, and we have recruitment fellowships available that are competitive that you might be able to apply for. Our overall funding comes with health insurance, which is always a big topic in the US. And we have convenient and affordable housing available near and on campus that's guaranteed for multiple years. To further build the community of grad students, we offer a peer mentoring program where more experienced, more senior grad students will become peer mentors to incoming students and guide them through the transition to Irvine and into the program. And the campus itself, that you may have heard about already in the last day, offers a number of other professional development activities, from writing to career development to teaching certifications and so on. I think I hand it over to Professor Johnson.
Sure. Do you want to do this one as well, Claudia? Sorry. Or I can do it as well. So one thing we want to highlight is what careers our graduates go on to pursue. And many of them do choose to pursue academic careers through postdoctoral research positions, and many will some will certainly seek academic positions as faculty at different types of institutions, ranging from community colleges to research institutions. And so here's some of our recent alumni. For example, one of my recent students, Jessica Wang, actually discovered a love of teaching during her PhD, and she's now a tenure-track professor of meteorology at a community college, Bellevue College in Washington State. We also have students who go on to work in the private sector or the public sector in research positions. For example, Forrest here is a computational scientist at Oak Ridge National Lab in Tennessee, and Diane is working for the local South Coast Air Quality District as a scientist. And so just to highlight that there are many things that we try to prepare our students for, and we also try to provide career guidance throughout the program. Okay, so moving on to some of the technical details of what to expect if you complete a PhD in our program. And a lot of this information can also be found on our website. But the program requirements are that students will need to complete a minimum of 9 graduate level courses. So there's 3 core courses that kind of span the breadth of ESS. And the reason that we require these classes in global physical climatology, humans in the Earth system, and global biogeochemical cycles is that we actually have students coming to our program from a wide range of backgrounds. So you may have seen on the flyer that we're looking for students who might have their undergraduate degrees in fields such as math or chemistry or physics or biology or engineering. And so some students, when they arrive, are relatively new to Earth science. And so the goal of these classes is to provide everybody with a fundamental understanding of the Earth as a system and humans' role in it. And so in addition to that, there's a research practicum, and that's basically a practical course that helps you learn how to do key things in graduate school, such as develop research projects, develop ideas, write a proposal, present your science. And so the result of that at the end of the first year is there's a practicum symposium where students present a research proposal that they've been developing for the first year of the program. And then because we are such a diverse department scientifically, you have the opportunity to take 5 graduate level elective courses, either from our department or from other departments on campus. And then at the end of your first year, there's a comprehensive exam. And once you complete all of your coursework and the comprehensive exam, you are awarded a master's degree. an MS degree. And then following that, after in your second year, you really work on further developing your plans for the research you want to conduct during your PhD. And at the end of year 2 is when you typically will advance to candidacy for the PhD. And as we previously mentioned, there's a minimum requirement that you TA for 2 quarters during the course of your time here. Okay, and I also wanted to say a little bit more about further support you could expect at UCI. We are an incredibly diverse university. We are, in fact, a minority serving institution, which means that we are specifically a Hispanic serving institution and an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution. And that's based on our undergraduate student population, but we see a lot of that reflected in our graduate population as well. And the faculty and students and researchers in our department are all strongly committed to principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And there are many, many resources and programs happening on our campus that are available to support you if you were to join our department. So one of the programs that's focused specifically on graduate students is DECADE. DECADE stands for Diverse Educational Community and Doctoral Experience. You may have heard of this if you've attended some of the other events as part of this virtual fair. And this DECADE, our department has 2 DECADE student reps, one of whom is here with us today. And we also have, they organize professional development and social events and provide a community, a broader community outside of just our department and connect you with graduate students across campus. There's also some programs such as Competitive Edge, which is a funded summer program for certain students might be eligible for. And this is to get you here and started on research and started on becoming comfortable with that transition to graduate school in the summer before you start. UCI ESS is also one of the partners of the AGU Bridge program. The AGU Bridge program is a program designed to increase the participation of historically marginalized groups in geosciences. And we were selected as a partner program given the diversity of our students, as well as the support and mentorship that we provide to them and the positive inclusive climate that we offer. And then there are many, many other organizations on campus, lots of identity-based student organizations, notably the SACNIS chapter, which is the Society for the Advancements of Chicanos and Native Americans in STEM, is quite newly active. And there are many, many others. So just know that if you come here, you will find a community and be welcomed. And I also want to go through a few details of the admissions requirements, which I'm sure you're curious about, and maybe you've already looked at these on the website. But the application will consist of transcripts from your current and previous institutions, 3 letters of recommendation. And I just want to stress that letters of recommendation really should be written by people who know you as a person and can speak to your potential as a graduate student. So your ability to succeed, professors who you've gotten to know or had interactions with or done research with are all good choices. And I would also strongly recommend that you reach out to people to ask for letters sooner rather than later. If we get, professors, as you know, are very busy and the deadlines come up quickly. So the time to be asking for these letters is now if you haven't done so already. And be prepared to justify why it is you want to pursue a PhD to them so that they can help write you a really strong letter. And I would highly recommend giving them additional information that might be useful as well, including your application materials and essays. So with that note, we also require a statement of purpose and a personal history statement. And I'm going to go through each of those in the next couple of slides to give you some guidelines for what those should focus on. And then if applicable, there is also an English proficiency exam requirement. Okay, so here are a few tips for an effective statement of purpose. The goal of the statement of purpose is basically to describe your research interests and your career goals and how completing a PhD here at UCI in Earth System Science will help you achieve those. So some tips for things to think about when writing these essays is, why are you passionate about the field? What research areas are you particularly curious about or interested in? How will completing a graduate degree help you achieve your long-term career goals? And what research have you completed, and have you published any papers or conference abstracts? This is a place to really highlight any previous research experience you've had. And I understand that not everybody has had the opportunity to do research as an undergraduate. So don't feel like you need to have published a paper to get in. That's absolutely not true. In fact, that's usually, it's more common that's not the case for our students that get admitted to our program. But you can also think about research experiences you might have had, for example, as part of a class project, or perhaps in some outside activities. So those are all things to include in that statement. And then for the personal history statement, this is a chance to really contextualize your accomplishments and life experiences and the opportunities that you've had. So the personal history statement should describe your personal background, including any experiences or challenges that are relevant to your academic journey. And this is a great opportunity to describe how you overcame these challenges in order to achieve your educational goals. Completing a PhD is challenging, and there will be obstacles and setbacks along the way, and demonstrating how you persevere in the face of these challenges, and how you can be resilient through providing concrete examples of you demonstrating these traits in your past could be really helpful to the search committees. And you can also use this as an opportunity to describe other experiences that have helped strengthen your life skills. So in addition to being excellent at science, we try and train our PhD students to be excellent at communication, both oral and written. It's necessary to be both independent and able to work in teams. Any other evidence of leadership that you can describe from your life, that would also provide additional information that might be useful. And then finally, you can include anything that puts your application in a broader context of your lived experiences. If you've had substantial setbacks or challenges, you can feel free to do so, but only if you feel comfortable doing so. That's definitely not required. And so I just want to stress that when we are evaluating graduate applications, there's no single factor that's going to be the most important thing. We're looking holistically at all of your materials. So I'd say, we're not looking just at grades. We don't require the GRE anymore, which I forgot to mention on the earlier slide. So the GRE scores and the quantitative GPA is not the only factor that's important. We're really looking at you as a person and trying to assess why you want to do a PhD, and what you will bring to our program and what you will get out of it as well. And so yeah, just the essays are a really great place to highlight things like that. They can also be places to, the personal history statement, one last point on that, can also be a good place to mention if you had a break in your academic career for some reason, or if you had a really bad semester where you did terribly and there was a very good reason for that. That can be a good place to provide that context as well. Okay, so moving on to the timeline for applying to our program. It's great that you're all here thinking ahead. So application review actually begins on December 1st. And prior to this date, or prior to submitting your application, we really strongly recommend that you reach out to faculty members in the department that you're interested in working with. So do this as soon as possible if you haven't already. I should note though that this is a very busy time of year for email. And so do not be offended or deterred necessarily if you don't hear back. I think individual faculty have different policies and are better at that than others. So if you really want to work with somebody and you don't hear back, don't I'd say move forward and submit the application if you can anyway, and it will get reviewed. And we will make sure that it gets in front of that professor eventually. Following the application review, we actually will host a visit day. I'm not positive if we've decided, maybe Claudia knows, if we're going to do it in person or virtually or some combination of hybrid. So last year, because of COVID, we did this virtually. In previous years, we've always had an in-person visit day. So I guess stay tuned for that. And then we aim to have admission offers distributed by late February through early April. And so we'll continue reviewing applications that arrive after December 1st, but the earlier your application is in, the better in most cases. I also want to remind you again that we do have an alternate admissions pathway through the American Geophysical Union Bridge Program. And that has a deadline of March 31st. And that program is specifically aimed at underrepresented minority students. And that is a way to get your application actually seen by multiple institutions. Okay, so with that, I think it's time to transition to the Q&A part of our program. So first I'm gonna, I'll introduce the panelists to you and then let them say a little bit more about themselves. And you can feel free to type questions in the chat if you have them, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. You can ask it to all the panelists, or you can address questions to a specific panelist. So our first panelist is Bryant Paul, who is actually one of my students who works on paleoclimate of Mexico. He's a second-year PhD student. Our second panelist is Ada Nabila Akopta. I think we got the last name wrong, possibly. Sorry about that, Ada. And Ada works on ecosystem services and human dimensions of climate and environmental change with Benes Ego. Shivani Ehrenfrucht works in the ice sheet remote sensing group of Eric Renaud. And Tian Yao Xu works on the atmospheric dynamics group with Gudrun Magnus-Daughter. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually stop sharing my screen. And I'm gonna have you each say, what I'd like you to do is each say a couple of words about your educational background and journey and how you came to decide to do a PhD at UCI and what you work on, if you want to share a little bit more than what I said, if I got anything wrong. So why don't we start with Shivani.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. So yeah, as Kathleen said, I work on ice sheet modeling with Eric Renaud. I'm a fourth-year graduate student now, so sort of on the tail end of things. And I did my bachelor's degree in Colorado on environmental studies, and then I double majored with theoretical math. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do research. I really took to just like science in general when I was doing my undergraduate degree, and took a bunch of different random classes and couldn't really decide what I wanted to focus on. So I took a couple years off before applying to grad school, and then did a master's in Boston. And that was actually how I got into the cryosphere. So I applied to a bunch of different master's programs on a bunch of different topics, just anything that I thought sounded interesting. And yeah, and then like really got, I don't know, I like really fell for studying like ice sheet dynamics. And so when I decided to go on and do a PhD, I specifically was looking for people who were doing, you know, some sort of like combination of like big data analysis or like stats or mathematical modeling, and then studying glacier dynamics. So that was sort of how I ended up here. I did a bit of a roundabout academic journey, I think, compared to some of our grad students. Anyway.
Great, thank you, Shivani.
Mhm.
How about Ada? Do you want to go next?
Hey everyone, good to meet you guys. My name is Ada Akopta and I'm originally from Cameroon. And I'm a second year student in UCI. I'm an international student. So I have a background in natural resources and environmental management. I had an MSc from the University of Buea, Cameroon. And after I had my MSc, I went on to work a little bit for NGOs. And then I started my own NGO that was looking at food production systems and trying to combat plastic pollution. So after that, I thought about, continuing my education and having a PhD. So I started talking to some professors and I really wanted to do something or research that was focused in Cameroon somehow. So I was talking to professors and I got introduced to Bernice, my current advisor, who does some research in Cameroon. So I started talking with her and turned out we had work that we could do in common. And now we are working on palm oil in Cameroon, how palm oil is impacting ecosystem services. And I'm trying to quantify carbon emissions as a result of palm oil expansion. So yeah, I talked with her and started my application into UCI, went through the exams, got my TOEFL, and I even wrote a GRE, although that year it was canceled out, but hey. So yeah, that's how I got into UCI.
Thanks, Ada. How about we do Tian Yao next? Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm Tian Yao. I'm also an international student. I'm from Taiwan, and I did my bachelor degree as a chemist actually. And I decided I want to do meteorology. So I actually did the hurricane dynamics when I was back home. And then when I applied for the PhD, my advisor recommended me to UCI due to its interdisciplinary nature. So I came here. I work with Magnus' daughter. Initially, I thought I'm going to work on something very theoretical because that's what I used to do. But I end up working with Francois. I heavily involved with the ocean. I built models. I heavily deal with the coding. And right now I get more interest in AMOC. So I'm kind of in this transition into a oceanographer. Yeah, so that's one of the pathway that you might not work with the person that you think of, but that's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then Bryant.
Sorry, everyone, I have kind of spotty internet. Thanks for the introduction, Kathleen. I'm Bryant. I'm a second year working with Kathleen, and I'm a first-gen student. I came from UC Santa Barbara. I majored in earth science, and I started my journey, I guess, in undergrad when I was introduced to the topic of paleoclimate. Oh, am I lagging out? Okay. I was introduced to the topic of paleoclimate through a class that I took. And I really wanted to delve deeper into the subject. So I started doing some research under a professor named C.A. Weldiam. And he introduced me to research funding. So one program that he introduced me to was the McNair Scholars Program, which was designed for first-gen underrepresented and low-income students who were interested in pursuing a PhD. And I was able to get funding through that program, and they also provided a bunch of resources to get prepared for graduate school. And yeah, that's kind of like how I streamlined into a PhD right after undergrad. They provided a lot of resources to me and gave me a lot of advice on how to get into graduate school. And yeah, so I wanted to continue working on paleoclimate. So I was researching professors, and then I found Kathleen, and it kind of worked out that way. And Kathleen shares a lot of values as I do. So that kind of worked out for me too. And I was really interested in continuing research in paleoclimate in general. And now I work on cave stalagmites, specifically looking at reconstructing the climate in Northeast Mexico in the last 128,000 years. And yeah, so that's kind of my background.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So do we have any questions from any participants? You can feel free to unmute and ask, or again, type it in the chat.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Godwin Sunday. I'm talking over from Nigeria, that's Africa, yeah. And I'm sorry, it's basically we're in the night here, so I'm actually sorry for stopping the video, because you can't basically see me. We are out of power now at the moment. So actually, interested. First of all, I would like to really appreciate your effort you guys have put into this holding this particular forum. It has really informed me so much, and much thanks and many thanks to everyone who has contributed to it. So I have listened to all you guys said, and I have some few questions. Firstly, I would want to know if when I start peradventure I get admission to my PhD program, will I be working on existing projects or I have to develop mine? Firstly, sorry for that. I majored in geology as well in Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And although I graduated since 2017, that's I had my bachelor's 2017, and I've been working with some NGO, like I've been in the industry for some couple of years, and it's still related to, basically I've been doing geochemical sampling and mineral exploration. So I am really, really much interested in going for paleoclimate reconstruction. Actually, I don't know if I'm talking too much. I actually apologize for that. I actually got interest in paleoclimate from my freshman year. Then we had, it was an environmentalist that was giving a lecture, and he mentioned something that particularly struck me. He said, our children's children are going to suffer if nothing is done about it. That was that phrase he made, and I was really touched because I felt guilty immediately. Why? Because I was an undergraduate student in geology that had the plans to major in the hydrocarbon sector. He actually made that statement while giving a lecture on the global greenhouse gases emission. So I was touched. I was like, no. This guy is talking to me. I had to take it personal. I was like, I am not going to venture into the hydrocarbon to contribute to the global gas emission. Rather, I'm going to look for something that will contribute back to society. So that was when I developed interest in paleoclimate, with a particular a lecturer that's in my penultimate year, Professor Najumi. He's actually a geochemist. He highlighted the use of isotopic geochemistry in solving paleoclimate issues. So that was when I got interest. So that's my background. So actually, back to my question, I would want to know if I would be working on existing projects or I have to develop mine. That's one. And the other one is, how many papers am I expected to have published, like during my research, or for me to be awarded a doctorate? That will be all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Godwin. Those are two very good questions. So I'm curious to see how the students answer those. So if somebody wants to jump in, feel free.
Hi, Godwin. I like how powerful you are and passionate about what you're looking forward to or what you're interested in working on. So for how many papers you need to publish, it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is who you're working with, and how they want to see your thesis come together. The ultimate goal is to have your thesis together at the end of the day. So first of all, like the advisor I'm working with, we try to make sure that each chapter of your thesis can constitute one publishable paper. So, but other people might not work like that. So it all depends. Yeah, someone might want to take the next question.
Thank you, Ada.
How about the first question? Did anybody come here knowing what it exactly was you were going to work on?
I think I can sort of comment on that as well. I think that is actually a very good question because that's my problem that I had. So it really depends on advisor, first of all. So each advisor, some actually will expect you to develop yourself. So their guidance will be provided that way. But some actually are more like, I won't say controlling, but they just assign you what to do. They tell you what to do. So you kind of learn through that process. So I think that's a really important question actually when you got a chance to meet in person or by the Zoom um, with the potential advisor you want to work with. I mean, getting straightforward does no harm to anyone. So I think it will be good to ask that, like, this is my expectation. I don't have too much background on this, but I'm interested. Will you provide me some topic to work on? Like, yeah, if that's your question, you should ask them directly. They'll be happy if you ask that, I think.
All right. Thank you, Tiango.
Yeah.
Great. So we have a few other questions coming into the chat. We have some questions about funding. That's something that I think Claudia and I can address. So as we mentioned, our students are primarily funded by a combination of grants, fellowships, and TA positions. And so if you bring a fellowship with you, typically that is considered towards, so we if a student gets a fellowship, that we aim to pay, with very few exceptions, we aim to pay all of our students equitably the same. So if you bring a fellowship that covers all of your salary, for example, and tuition and fees, then we would not be paying additional on top of that. But if you bring in like only partial funding, then we would make sure that the rest of it is covered so that you are paid the equal amount to the others in your cohort. Is that a reasonable answer to that, Claudia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have all kinds, like, so some people aren't for scholarships, others are fully on TA-ships.
And there's many opportunities for like internal fellowships within UCI. We have some programs like we have a new multidisciplinary fellowship called Solutions at Scale. We have something called Ridge to Reef, which is an NSF funded program that provides some funding for students to do kind of cross-disciplinary community engaged research. There's a new program that ESS is a partner in, which is focused on environmental racism and health inequities. That could be a source of funding for some students. So there's lots of options. Our main goal is when you come as a student, you shouldn't have to worry about getting paid. So we guarantee that you're going to get paid, and that's really the PI's responsibility to help ensure that, and the department takes that seriously. We do encourage our students though to apply for fellowships as much as possible, because not only does that help with securing the funding, but it also is a great thing for you to have on your CV. Sorry, took over the student panel there for a second. How about we move on to this question from Christopher. What has been the hardest part of your graduate school journey so far? So I'll toss that out to the panelists.
Okay. For me, it's mainly being an international student. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to be away from home. And also adjusting to the educational system was a little bit hard. But eventually you get into the system. You have a lot of people who are available to help you adjust. I had a lot of help from my cohort in adjusting. I had a lot of help from my advisor. So there is a huge international community here that kind of supported me to adjust to that. So that's it for me.
I think the hardest part for me has been sort of with my research project specifically, I had a really steep learning curve, and I was learning how to do like use tools that I had no experience with. I was trying to pick up like a new coding language and just like work with data in forms I'd never like worked with data before in. And so I definitely felt supported, but there was just like it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're just being thrown like tons of new information at the same time. And so yeah, I think like my second year when I was really trying to get research done, but it was just slow, picking everything up, kind of on the fly. That was probably my most stressful time. And now that I've like learned more stuff, I can just work is less like anxiety inducing. And the first year you're taking a bunch of classes, you're getting to know the department. You're not focused so entirely on research. And so yeah, I think that's it for me.
Great, thanks. I see some hands raised. I'm just going to go down in order. So how, Amanda?
Hi, I am trying to kind of get a feel of the programs. I went to the MERP session yesterday, but like my focus is on like environmental justice, but not in a necessarily urban atmosphere. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's research that you guys know of that's going on within the Earth system science realm, that would be more geared towards, actual social justice, maybe for Indigenous peoples, and just not so urban focused.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think a lot of our research is not necessarily urban focused. There's nobody here who's specifically doing environmental justice research in Indigenous communities. Although I'm actually a Native American myself, and I do a lot of outreach and work with tribal communities and work in outreach to increase participation of Native and Indigenous students in earth and environmental science. And that's something that, I think the best way to do would be to reach out with faculty who are doing research that is relevant to environmental justice or the science that you're interested in doing. So we have, for example, a lot of people in the atmospheric chemistry part are working on air pollution and working on projects working on how different communities are disproportionately affected by air pollution. We have people working on topics such as hydroclimate change and sea level rise, and things that will have disproportionate impacts on Indigenous communities living in coastal regions. And so I think, and UCI has a lot of people across different departments who are working in environmental justice space. So you might also look into the School of Social Ecology, where there's a lot of people working on topics like that, and also in public health. So yeah, I'd say if you haven't found anybody who seems to be doing the research that you're interested in, then you can always reach out and pitch what you want to do and see if anybody is interested. But in terms of like the right department to apply to, it really depends on the person, on identifying the person or people that you'd like to work with most. So if you want to email me, I can point you to some other resources on that topic. Okay, how about Anandu?
Hello everyone, thanks for this opportunity. Am I audible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, myself Anandu and I am from India. So my question is is it mandatory to submit this English proficiency score with the application if I am submitting the application by the December 1st? Or if I can submit it later onwards after submitting the application? That's my question. Should I submit the IELTS score or anything with the application, or after submitting the application, can I submit it later onwards?
Sorry, I'm afraid I missed the question. Did you get that, Claudia?
All right. Can you please put it in the chat? It's your connection is spotty and we can't hear the question.
Oh, okay, okay. I will write in the chat box. Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, in the meantime, let's
Yeah.
move on to Nathan.
I just have a question about like the letter, statement, purpose, and personal history statement. So say like if I was writing like those essays for a different college, are people allowed to use this similar information? Like if they were applying to UCI, like say if I was applying to a different college, I could use similar information from that into UCI, or do they have to be completely different essays?
Oh no, I think you would want to. I mean, I think it helps to tailor them if you're trying to target specific research topics and advisors a little bit, but I'd say overall it's fine to use a lot of the same material.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so Patrick.
Hi, thank you. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions, and then my first question is related to the fact that some students, if you don't secure external funding, you have to get funded through the TA-ship and stuff. And like I was just wondering, for people that don't have external funding, like how much is expected of TA they have to do for throughout the program, just to have an idea about that. And yeah, but I have this question also is there already someone that asked it in the chat, and I think it will be really interesting, not for this year for sure, but in the coming years, like why international students can also apply for application fee waiver. I mean, we as international students, we can also have the same challenges that other Americans may have sometime. And I think there should be a way that if you explain and you can prove that you have the challenges, you may get this kind of, because I mean, it's even possible I won't apply because I don't have money now. So it's really interesting. And I think it would be great in the kind of outreach to try to address this kind of question, especially since it's really university wide. And yeah, so my question is more on the TA-ship, how much is expected for the program when you end the program. Thank you.
I can chime in a little bit on this. So TA-ships are not the only way that you can get funding if you aren't on like an external grant. But everyone does TA some. So the expectation in our department is that you work a maximum of 20 hours a week during a TA-ship on the actual TA-ship, and that'll give you full funding for that term. And then there are, I think for people who end up not on an external grant or fellowship, they TA around 6 quarters on average. And then usually there's some combination of either being on a research fellowship that your advisor provides, or we have a couple different programs within UCI that give like 1-year fellowships to students. So one of them is called Ridge to Reef. I think that still gives a year fellowship or a year of funding. I think the time commitment on that is around 10 hours a week, and there is like a course that you do that helps promote like science communication and a couple other like assignments throughout the year, but it's a pretty low time commitment. And then we also have a social media fellowship now. So there's sort of different ways that you end up piecing together the funding, with teaching just being one of them. And then with regards to the comments on like funding for international students specifically, some grants are only for US citizens, but there are fellowships that you can apply for that that don't have that restriction. So the research grant that I'm on is I think, available to anybody. And I know several of the international students in our department and the other like physical science departments at UCI are funded through this program. So, so it ends up being sort of a piecemeal that's specific to the individual student. Yeah. I don't know if anyone, or if I missed anything. But.
Yeah, thank you, Shivani. Just to add, I fully agree as well, Patrick, about the international application fees. And personally, I'm in favor of getting rid of application fees entirely. So unfortunately, we don't always have control, but we can continue to push on that. So I know it's a hardship for a lot of students. And that was a big part of the motivation for us actually getting rid of the GRE as well, because that was very expensive. Okay, so I think we are almost about out of time. What I can say, I'm going to ask this panelist for one last comment. And if there's any questions we didn't get to in the chat, you can please feel free to email. Send an email. If you have technical questions about your application, I'm going to put this email in the chat. That's for our student affairs person. We're actually in a transition between different staff people, which is why that person isn't here yet. The new person is actually starting next week. But once they're here, they can answer all sorts of questions and help with your application process. And then I will also be following up by email with a list of some additional resources and links that might be useful to everybody. And you can feel free to reach out to any professor in the department, Claudia or I, by email. You can find all of our contact info on the ESS website, or you can follow us as well on social media. And just one last question for the panelists, I guess, if you could, we've talked a lot about the ins and outs of the department and the PhD program, but I wondered if you could share a little thoughts on how you feel about being part of the ESS graduate community and living in Orange County and Irvine.
I can start. So ESS is great. I really love our department. It wasn't my top choice when I was applying to grad school, but after talking to a few of the people here and getting to know the department a little bit, it was the culture here that swayed my decision. So after getting to know the department a little bit, it very much became my top pick. I would say that Southern California has a lot to offer. There is a lot to do, kind of regardless of what your interests are in. And so that's really like a huge benefit of living in this area. Irvine is very safe. I'm personally more of a city person, and so I miss sort of the bustle of being in a bigger area, but you know, it's a pretty great place to live.
Yeah, I think ESS is really homey. It's hard to feel alone while you're here. There's a strong graduate community. We do like socials every Fridays, and you can just go and hang with everybody. The professors are very down to earth. You always have someone to talk to, and the people are very brilliant. I find everyone really brilliant. You get a lot of new ideas. You get like people working on so many different research areas, and you get to learn all of that. So that's really great. And Irvine is really nice. It's very clean. It's one of the cleanest cities I've ever been in, and it's just calm and perfect to study. But it's also great because it's not very far from like the beach. I've gone to the beach, like that's the most place I've been to since I came here. So you can always just go there and chill. And you can always go to LA, and it's easy to fly around and just see everywhere. So I really like it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just bouncing off of what Ada said, Irvine's really great. I actually live off campus, and I would just say like the city is really nice. and there's just a lot of stuff within reach in Irvine. Irvine's kind of like this middle ground between LA and San Diego and basically everything else. And we're close enough to the beach that it's not something that's out of like reach, I guess. I mean, I came from Santa Barbara where the beach was like literally right there, but I'd still say that like Irvine is still pretty close, and yeah, everything else is there's a lot of stuff to do around Irvine. That's all I have to say.
Great, thanks. Tanyao, do you have anything to add?
I'm kind of the opposite way because I came from Taipei, which is like a very busy city, and I'm so used to say I can, like all the convenience store, 7-Eleven, they're just 10 steps away. So here is completely different. So Irvine is definitely a good place to live, but most of my friend circle ends up in like a Long Beach that's kind of closer to LA. So it really depends on like where you came from, what your culture background is. But I would say it's a quite wide spectrum in South Cal. So maybe you don't find particular place interesting, but there's definitely a niche for you to be in South Cal.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's a great note to end on. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We will be sharing the slides, and we're going to be posting this video as well. So we'll share that with all of you, and we really encourage you to consider applying and reach out to us or other professors. And yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing applications from many of you. So good luck, everyone, and thanks for coming. And thank you very much to all of our student volunteers for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.